Chapter 167 of One Punch Man was absolutely phenomenal. I honestly gotta believe that was one of the best chapters I've ever read of anything in my entire life. 167 was an 11 out of 10 baby oil status.
Lovely.
It was stunning, jaw-dropping. I needed like 3 towels. I was sweating, almost had a heart attack. It was crazy. It blew my mind on so many fronts. Yu-Gi-Moto style, open your mind. Murata opened my mind.
Amazing.
Big time. However, this chapter of One Punch Man, 168, it's actually also stunning, jaw-dropping, crazy, but in a very weird way. Well, okay, not true. One way was crazy hype, well drawn, amazing, and it was a simple achoo. The other one, okay. This Saitama martial arts wiggle. This just do a little dance. Make a little love. Get down tonight. Get down tonight. Get down tonight, baby.
What the hell is you doing?
I'm leaving the video. I do not care.
I don't like where this is going.
Saitama is able to go back in time because of some crazy Garo, godlike martial arts, subatomic particle wiggles. Wiggle. He's able to just wiggle. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Dude, Saitama has time traveling capabilities via sheer martial arts skill. Nani? That's busted. That's actually Looney Tunes busted. He just twerks and he can go back in time. He already has faster than light farts and he can twerk and go back in time. Dude. Imagine he does the Omni-Man squat. Oh no, like yo, what? The universe will implode. Yo, I don't know. Well, no, I do know, and it's pretty crazy. But it does make a degree of sense. And actually, if you don't know, number one, watch my live stream reaction to the chapter on Cole Requiem over here. Check it out, number one, because this was a crazy reaction, especially when Saitama just simply goes achoo, because Saitama is actually growing exponentially. So we actually get a better understanding of how Saitama's powers work. Whereas Saitama does have some sort of floor in terms of power, or I guess maybe a ceiling? Yeah, let's say a ceiling. He has a ceiling, let's say in terms of power, but that ceiling actually keeps on growing exponentially in a matter of like nanoseconds. They're moving several orders of magnitude faster than light. And over the course of this fight, Saitama is growing so quickly. We have the Sirius series squared in the last chapter, and we saw how much damage they did to the cosmos. I would argue, you can easily argue that galaxies, or at least a galaxy, was caught in that blast. That's easy argument. And yet, from that point on, when they destroyed an untold number of solar systems, bare minimum, Saitama is getting exponentially stronger from that. Like literally, Saitama is getting 10 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times stronger over the course of this fight from the Sirius series squared. That's bonkers. That's Looney Tunes status. And it makes sense. It is the same principle as to how Saitama can adapt to any environment. At some point in this chapter, before we have Garo turn to a stone salt statue, Sodom and Gomorrah style, because God, Yahweh, is a mega asshole in One Punch Man. Let me not, okay, yeah, because, Sunday church for at least 3 hours, guaranteed. That being said, people, Saitama can actually hear God tell Garo, silence, like Silent Library, silence. Okay, so Saitama, who couldn't even see God's footprints a few chapters ago, can now hear God speak to Garo. So Saitama is getting always at a baseline exponentially stronger and stronger and stronger, and over the course of a fight, his powers just catapult to a whole new level in a matter of like nanoseconds. It's disgusting. To the point where he just goes achoo, and Jupiter outside of that iron dense core is gone. It is gone. That is phenomenal. So we find out more about Saitama's character and how it actually works as a character, at least so far, in terms of combat, in terms of actual power, and it's scary. Because essentially it is, you can argue, the root of his limiter being removed, where he can endlessly grow in power. That is, I guess, the main premise here, where he can literally endlessly grow in power. He is constant prime Dogecoin. He is always going to the moon. He's going to every moon across the cosmos. And that is extremely scary. But then, when we have these subatomic wiggles, Saitama can go back in time as a result of copying Garo. After all, we do see at the beginning of this chapter, when he does the karate chop on Garo, that is the same karate chop that Garo used on Saitama back in chapter 162. So Saitama, in theory, is getting to the point, or is at the point, where he can essentially copy any technique that he witnesses. But to copy this move, for Garo's only just in theory. However, for Saitama, he's so powerful at this point in time, he is allowed to actually control these subatomic particles that actually go backwards and forwards in time. And this is something that's actually explained in greater detail by the scanlators, who actually added more details in that particular page, where they say, and I quote, the two types of subatomic particles, one moving forward and the other backward, begin to imitate each other's movements. So that new line of dialogue that the scanlators added, that does give us greater context here, where, and I think it is actually true, where there are some subatomic particles, maybe even quarks, I think they're called quarks, like some quantum realm stuff, where they can go back in time. The whole point here is that it does make sense that this can happen, especially when in One Punch Man, now you find out that there is one time stream. And it's not MCU Loki, we have like 40 different Lokis. No. There is only one time stream, and you can go forward, I suppose, and also backwards in time within this one time stream. And when Saitama goes back in time, he does actually hit Garo through the time stream, and the reason why it takes 0 punches for this fight to end between Garo and Saitama is because this Saitama technically doesn't exist. He is a future Saitama that punched past Garo from the time stream, which is why the current Saitama and the future Saitama, they merge in the singular timeline, because causality as a result must reverse as a result of the actions of future Saitama. That must happen now. And we even see, as a result of the Sirius series squared, the gaping hole in the cosmos starts to fill again and starts to populate again with stars, potentially galaxies, planets, all that kind of stuff. All the actions that Saitama and Garo would have done in the future cease to exist. So the moon Io will be regenerated and restored, Jupiter will be restored, all that stuff, okay? All that stuff. So it is pretty crazy, it is pretty far out there in terms of what one Murata chose to do in order to save the heroes of the people in the world and that kind of stuff. But I guess the main question here, moving forward, would be, hold on now. We just had a redraw in real time in the chapter itself. Okay, hold up. All of this character stuff that we got for Garo and Saitama, is that now gone as a result of us going back in time. For Saitama, you can argue not necessarily, because number one, he may still have retained some memories of what happened in the future timeline, because at the end of this chapter, Saitama is very excited to see that Genos is still alive. But hold on now, Genos hasn't died in this timeline. Oh, that's number one. So Saitama may still have some memories that is outside the scope of causality, which does make a degree of sense because Saitama's kind of busted. Number one, that's to say the least, Number two, in this chapter, even though Saitama is still pondering whether or not he should be a hero, at the same time, he is still doing his hero's duties, and he's not going to kill Garo because the kid Tario, he did request for Saitama to save Garo. That is the exact same mindset that Saitama had well before Garo got the powers he got from God. The main thing here for Garo during the last chapter was, of course, Garo seeking to go back to planet Earth because his dream is tied to planet Earth. And when he's on the moon Io, he's kind of worried that he can't get back home because, again, there's no point being this absolute God-class monster when he can't even rule the planet that he wants to be on, number one. Number two would be, of course, the decision to actually give Saitama that technique to go back in time. That was a huge decision after seeing Tario, the kid, dead as a result of his actions. The person that cheated on the most, he wound up killing. Those components are now gone from the story because now they're rewritten. Fair enough, fine. However, that doesn't mean there can't be more oncoming character development for Garo. Because at this point in time, Garo had just achieved his dream. And now that it's suddenly gone from Garo, there's a good chance where in the next chapter, we do have now our Saitama and Garo red table talk. And we discuss Garo's mindset, why he thinks what he thinks. And through Saitama and maybe Bang and through Tario, we show Garo a better perspective of viewing the world and viewing life and that kind of stuff. So we can still get oncoming character development moments for Garo easily. And then one thing I'll say too is that when it comes to Saitama and his character, the biggest thing I think was the fact that Saitama had the chance to actually go all out, but he chose not to. He chose not to fight all out against Garo. And of course, that was a big, huge character moment for Saitama. He sacrificed the chance to achieve his dream. But the thing here is this, we see over the course of this fight, his dream was already out of reach anyway. Because even one-handed, he is still getting exponentially more and more and more powerful. We see that he winds up leaving Garo in the dust. So the chance to actually fight at full power was never going to truly arise in the first place. Because Garo couldn't actually match Saitama's full power because Saitama's full power keeps on growing. So it is bittersweet in that sense. Because, I mean, I guess ultimately wait for the main dude himself, G-O-D, Yahweh. Because Garo can't do it with that much power, but mind you, he still had a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the power of the great G-O-D. So I guess when actually G-O-D and Saitama fight, then we have the final actual full power Saitama versus Yahweh potentially. Because even still then, who knows, even then he could never achieve his dream if Yahweh is not up to snuff. Because Saitama, just by existing, naturally over the course of time is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, because that's what they reveal in this chapter. But he goes parabolic when someone can actually somewhat match him, and then he leaves them in the dust. Okay. So it is relatively bittersweet. It definitely is. But all in all, this chapter was pretty crazy, pretty intense, and I will say that it is a bit concerning for the character components, but honestly, it's really not that concerning because I think there's a good chance that there is a lot of, on both Saitama and Garo's side, there is, I think, clearly a lot of character components to come for both these characters. And when it comes to the world building of the actual story itself, that doesn't change. The back of the moon still being exposed, be able to travel through time, the Ginyu Force, Guardians of the Galaxy, blasting skills and techniques, what is divine energy? These things still absolutely still apply when it comes to world building, without a doubt. So this chapter is a weird chapter. It is a hype chapter. That sneeze was intense. That fart was hyper menacing. And of course, the time wiggle, very funky stuff. But all in all, hey yo, I enjoyed the hell of this chapter. Make no mistake.